Hey, what's up, Internet world? Welcome to POWERVERSE. I am your host, the Golden Mike from the North, BALA Power. Now, this podcast was created in response to our pivot against the pandemic COVID-19 impacts. Here, we get to explore creative arts businesses, empowering and inspiring stories from our communities of First Nations people across the country. So I hope you enjoy these episodes. And like we always say here in POWERVERSE, stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay connected. That's all. What up, Internet world? Welcome to POWERVERSE 2021, a brand new year, and we're back again. This is Mao Power, the Golden Mike from the North, here broadcasting live in Gimoi country from Boombaja. I want to say welcome everybody viewing in, and today I have a very, very special guest with me, Miss Grace Lillian Lee. Thank you for being a guest on POWERVERSE. Now, I caught you a bit off guard and I said we were going to do a podcast, and you didn't realize it was a video recorded podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Well, thank you. And you can say hi to everybody tuning in.
Hi,
globally.
everyone.
But welcome, to be here. Welcome to the POWERVERSE episodes. And, we go way back, and we'll get into a bit of that, how we met. But why I brought you on here is, one, you are in the world of fashion, and you've done some great work up here in the far north Queensland, but all around Australia as well. Before we get into it, can I ask you if you could introduce yourself, please? Like your cultural background, where you're from. Yeah.
Do you want me to look at the camera or
No, just talk to me. Or you can look at the camera. Just talk to me.
Sorry, guys.
Don't worry. No, it's okay. This is going to stay in there too. We're not editing anything, right?
Oh, okay. Hi, guys. My name is Grace Lillian Lee. I am a descendant of the Miriam Mer people from the eastern islands of the Torres Straits. I celebrate my cultural lineage through weaving, and that's what's really brought me into my passion into exploring my identity in fashion. So I've got a really long history in regards to that journey. Our country is built off many different... can we pause that, actually?
That's okay.
Rambling.
No, rambling is good. Like, this is... Do not treat this as an interview.
I feel like it's an interview.
It's not. It's a yarn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Patrick hasn't seen me like this before. Off guard. So I guess my upbringing, I was born and bred in Cairns. In 2010, I took my grandmother back to the Torres Straits, where she hadn't returned for 57 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so so her maiden name is Barola, and she lived in Cherbourg during the war. And then she came back to the Torres Straits and met my grandfather, who had a corner shop on TI.
Yep.
And fell in love, and the rest was history.
There you go. Wow, 57 years.
57 years.
That is amazing to be able to take her back up there just to see home, and you getting introduced to the place and connecting.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was really emotional because there was children that were named after her, and just going through the ceremony of the unveiling of my great aunt's tombstone, and being a part of dancing and cooking, and just something that I had not been exposed to before. So it was a complete learning for me because it was something that was suppressed in my father's upbringing.
Yes.
So they were brought up in Edmonton at a service station. He was born on TI, but they didn't, because grandma didn't return for whatever reason, she adopted her husband's lifestyle.
Yes.
And as a Chinese man, and then 57 years later, I'm her granddaughter taking her back to the Torres Straits. She was treated like a queen. I think we had the taxi that was dedicated to grandma for the whole week.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty funny, but also just really emotional to see grandma be surrounded by so much family, and
Yes.
she's the elder of, she's the eldest now within her siblings. It was just a really special and quite a monumental time for me to understand who I am and question my identity and want to know more. And so the best way I knew how to do that was through the act of weaving, because I connected with Uncle Ken Thaide, who taught me some simple weaving techniques, and at the time I was studying fashion design, and then I started to explore it on the body. And unfortunately, I'm not wearing anything today because I was caught off guard because I thought this was a recording.
Don't worry, we'll actually weave in some footage and overlays of some of the works that you do with this as well. And we'll definitely give links to your website, so where people can follow you.
Thank you.
But it's interesting that you were saying, like, you know, I realized, and I've experienced this also with my siblings. So I come from a family of 10. We're a very big family, so parents have been very, very busy. But the younger siblings had been moved away from the islands, and their idea of the culture is not as prevalent as someone who had grew up within the culture. And I know a lot of people in mainland Australia experienced that. One, I wanted to see, like, for you, how did that impact on you? You know, coming up and then being reconnected to that, during this part of the journey.
I think it impacted me hugely because it's just something that I had. Like, I went to school at high school in Cairns at Parramatta, and we had a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, but they didn't know where to put me because at that time I didn't know about my cultural lineage. And so I ended up in the Aboriginal dancing team, but I was always interested in the Torres Strait Island dancing team, and there was something that was inherent that I was drawn to, but I couldn't understand what. And so when I took Grandma back to the Torres Straits, it just, I don't know, it made me feel like, I like to call it that I wasn't brought up with any cultural privileges, so any understanding. So it's unfortunate for our family to not have those strong connections. So I feel like I carry a very heavy weight for the rest of the family, because I am being really loud and proud about our descendants and the fact that, you know, our lineage, and whereas a lot of the other family may not feel that connected, and they haven't been back to the Torres Strait, so they haven't had that opportunity to connect. And whenever I go home, family is always like, we just want people to come home and learn and understand more. So it's just taking that time, I guess, and having that connection with family, I think, is important. And I'm just lucky that I have had some family that have really embraced me. And so, it's been, I think the weaving has also helped. The fact that I've been able to communicate to people my lineage, even though I think I had a lot of complexes in the past about what I look like, how I speak, and the fact that I don't know culture. So it's something that I'm longing for. And I think that fashion can really be a vessel to help me do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, thank you for sharing that. So part of what we do here in POWERVERSE is I like to speak about real stories and real experiences. You know, you never know who's watching this, who's going through the same part of the journey in their life. And, you know, being able to hear some of the gems and jewels that are dropped from someone who's going through the process or has engaged in this or been through the challenges, it could be empowering and inspiring. And I can understand how not only challenging, but how brave you have to be able to take that step and re-engaging, because it's really trying to reconnect, and you will be confronted with a lot of challenges. And especially just understanding context and, you know, being able to make those links and those connections again. And it feels like, so I commend you for that. So thank you for sharing that story. So I want to take us back to where we met. First, before I do that, fashion. How did you get into the world of fashion? For me, honestly, I knew fashion was a part of the entertainment industry. You had to look a certain part and have a certain aesthetic for when you're performing. But as an industry, it wasn't something that I was familiar with until I kind of really engaged with it through the Cairns Indigenous Arts Fair. Yeah. But I want to hear about your story and how you got into this world.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, as you can see, I'm not the most fashionable person at all times. Yeah. how did it begin?
So, do you consider yourself you call yourself designer? Yeah, you're a designer or a curator?
I give myself a couple of titles. I don't like to identify too much because I think I've had to really become quite a few different things.
Yes.
But I am a trained fashion designer.
Yes.
I studied at RMIT, which is the leading design school in Australia.
Is that in Melbourne?
Yeah, in Melbourne.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I studied fashion design, and I graduated with my honours. And
Fantastic.
I also got accepted to do my doctorate in this space.
Wow,
So
okay.
that's really exciting. But I'm yet to go down that avenue because that's a lot of work, which I'm already really busy with. But in regards to how I got started, my mum's a hairdresser and my father's an artist and a fitter and turner. So they're both always using their hands. I think my mum used to go to the races and she would get hats sent from Brisbane and she would be a judge for the fashions on the field. And I guess that's where my interest kind of got sparked through her hairdressing and my dad's creative practice and the races. So yeah, that's where it started. And then it did start at high school, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a wearable art competition. And so it's kind of like gone full circle now because the wearable art competition was always quite like where art meets fashion.
Yes.
And so I would compete every year, and this was the like main event of the year that I was specifically interested in more than my overall graduate degree.
Okay.
Like as in my
What
OP
school was this?
Cairns High.
Cairns High, okay.
Yeah. So I did that for my whole high school years, every year. And then when I graduated, I wanted to go to university to study fashion, but I didn't get in. So then I went to TAFE for a year. Mm-hmm. And then the following year, I finally got into university and I did 4 years at RMIT in Melbourne and ended up interning for big companies like Witchery and Mimco, which I ended up getting a job at Mimco as their assistant designer.
Yes.
But it made me I was a bit soul destroyed. I didn't feel like I wanted to be in the industry of commercial fashion,
Interesting.
mass production, communicating with China, looking at our margins, making sure that they're as low as possible so we can, I don't know if I can say that publicly.
We just did.
Anyway, yeah. But basically that's business.
Yes.
And that wasn't the business that I was in my mind and heart.
Yes.
So I was thinking that there's more to fashion and there's more of a purpose that fashion can provide than just selling a commercial item.
Yes.
And mass producing it. So I actually set up a hub here at the TAFE where the machines that were sitting idle at night were being able to be accessed by previous students so they could start up their own businesses.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we started up a fashion hub and then our local shopping centre, Cairns Central, gave us a space.
Fantastic.
It was amazing because then it was direct to market and they were producing at TAFE and then selling in a major shopping centre in Cairns. So
wow.
Yeah, that was ages ago. But what's funny now is that I'm basically rewriting that whole model with a bit of a broader, larger vision.
Yes.
But focused on First Nations designers.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And okay. That's great to hear that you did that. Like, first let's go back. I'm very interested in the part where you was talking about, what was that? We're leaving that.
Who are we calling it? No.
Where it didn't. Where you're talking about how your soul didn't feel right working in the industry, and I know from an artist perspective, being an independent artist in the music, I want to be able to produce the music that I love and like to produce, and I want to produce not the stuff that's commercially, the number one hits, because it just sounds so generic for me. And so if you wanted to go a bit more into that, like how, like going through that part of your journey, where you had this internal conflict, you felt like your soul wasn't in the right place.
Yeah.
Like what some of the things that you really like went through, and how did you overcome all of that?
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, because it wasn't feeling right in Melbourne and working for a larger organisation, I came back to home. So I came back to Cairns, and then that's when I started this fashion hub with the TAFE. But I also then was, the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair reached out to me in 2013. They wanted a fashion show in this building that we're in today.
Yes.
And yeah, they wanted something that they wanted to present Indigenous culture through fashion.
Yes.
And I saw it as a real opportunity to not only show fashion, but have a narrative and share music and movement and cloth, and then also the fact that First Nations people are embodied by their culture. So, and because that was also a healing process for me to see other models who also felt disconnected could learn more about their culture through being immersed in it.
Yes.
So, and then connecting with the designers and, you know, learning about different storylines. So I think, starting, I'm the founder of the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair fashion performance. It's been running for the past, is it 9 years now? It's quite a while.
So 2013
to
8 years.
8 years, sorry.
8 years.
Bad at maths. So, yeah, for 8 years, and I stayed there for 5 years, and then I've also been producing the Darwin Aboriginal Art Fair from Country to Couture for the past 3 years. So I think being able to be a part of the movement of celebrating our culture through fashion, through these events that I call fashion performances, has been a real highlight of, I guess, my career.
Yes.
And a lot more rewarding in the outcomes and the purpose and the reason behind these fashion performances. And you came on board in 2015.
I believe it was at the Wharf Terminals.
Yes.
It was at 2015?
Yes.
The year before, I believe I was invited to have a look at what the fashion event was. It was 2014, and you were using the music within that, and that I've never seen fashion presented that way in a storytelling narrative. So for those who have not seen a KIF event, we'll throw up some footage of what the events look like. If I get Jack, the guys behind the scene here, we got Jack, we got Nick, we got Dane behind the cameras, the team from OBHI and POWERVERSE. But we'll throw up some snapshots and you can have a look at it. And up to that point, I thought fashion was just something that you wore, and you telling a story about how you present yourself with. It's like a theater show, all happening in once, with music and with performance, choreography through it all. Was something I've never seen it before, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. And then you guys hooked me on, and I was the DJ, live DJ. It was the best thing, DJ live to all these things coming out, and it was. So 2015 is when I jumped on board. That
was very special. I hope we can do it again in the near future.
I'm sure we will. I will live stream it on POWERVERSE, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's I just think that we've got so much more to share. So why would we not include our music and our movement, and just there's so much richness, and I just think it's a really great contemporary expression of our culture. And it is quite immersive in the sense that there's many different things going on in regards to different collections that are coming from across the nation.
Yes.
So I just think it's a really nice space to be able to come together unitedly to express that, but also acknowledge the differences. But together I think it really sends a message to the wider community that we're here and we're doing it, and take notice, and we need to be a part of the Australian fashion industry. And that's why I've set up my non-for-profit organisation.
Yes, let's talk about. But before we do,
okay,
I gotta go this one. So I understand that when you put the shows on, your dad's the main designer and builder. I come into the space and I see Dad in there all the time, like creating these things. And I was walking past in this very office. I seen you guys were here with Uncle Kent designing some things for the future. And it's. How cool is it to have someone like that on board? Team Dad.
I love my dad. Thanks,
Dad.
Thank you. He's really good because he thinks about, like, I could just go off on a tangent, be like, I want it like this and this and this. And he's like, how is that going to be achievable? And so, yeah, he helps with, like, the construction and making sure that it'll work.
Yes.
But he has definitely been by my side. And I like that you bring that up because I need to remember that my parents have been a huge support of mine this whole journey. So,
yeah.
And Dad especially, in terms of his physical labor. He's he's 70 next year. So.
Wow. You wouldn't tell that. I was like, he's fit as, like, he's really fit. And,
he likes to stay active and keep moving, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that's very important, that acknowledging the support that you get, because, coming into an industry like this, there's so much challenges, and if you don't have a support network, it can make it even more difficult. And this is to anybody who's listening out there. If you have a great support network, please do appreciate them and also work closely with them, as we need that in it's a lonely industry sometimes.
Definitely. Definitely, and that's why I set up this organization, First Nations Fashion and Design, is because I wanted to create more of a united community to support each other, because the fashion industry is a beast.
Yes.
And then you're talking about bringing our culture into it. That's a whole nother beast.
Yes.
And so how do we ensure that there is cultural safety and that we are engaging into the fashion industry the way we want to, rather than being told how we have to?
Yes.
I think that there's been a lot nationally that's being seen, and words that have been written through, like, media platforms, which make it sound like Indigenous fashion must be inspired by Indigenous art. And I guess I want to challenge that and explore what Indigenous design looks like. I think we haven't been given the opportunity to further ourselves in the space of design.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing. Hang on. Excuse me. But that is really great. You touched on that topic. And we'll go into the First Nation fashion and design, and I want to talk a bit more about what you foresee in the future in the world of fashion and what you want to be doing. I know you've talked to me about a few things. You have so much ideas running in your head, I know. I get in that space as well. But dealing with, like you said, fashion industry is a beast. And I know we're in all fashion, because I treat it as art as well, because it is a form. It's an art form. I mean, it is creative art to be able to design an aesthetic and a look. And fake art has been a big issue in Australia. I mean, and right now I know there were great things that great initiatives out there trying to tackle this this issue. And I want to hear from your perspective of how that is in the fashion world. How does that have an impact, and what do you see like a way that we can really take control, or really try to expose that? And what we'll do is we'll link in some information for people out there who's interested to have a look about the stories and the issues around fake art in Australia. And it's been going on for far too long.
It has.
Yes.
And I think in regards to fashion, it's a bit of a hard one, because and especially Indigenous fashion.
Yes.
There are a lot of collaborations that are happening nationally with non-Indigenous designers and then an artist. So I guess what we're looking at, there's many facets that could be looked at. But for instance, the collaboration with an artist and making sure that they're getting the right remuneration for their design. And then does that artist know about the designer's capacity? Like, do they know how many creations are actually being made out of their designs?
Yes.
And are they getting a percentage of the sale, or is it an upfront payment? I think there's a few different areas of like ensuring safety for both parties.
Yes.
But I think like obviously our focus is for ensuring cultural safety for First Nations people within the industry. So I think at the moment we don't have there's not a clear guideline or protocols within the fashion industry of how to engage with First Nations people. So I think that's something that would be really interesting for I don't know whether that's something that is worked through our membership drive and we start learning what the industry wants from an Indigenous perspective and from a non-Indigenous perspective, because we've got memberships for both. And at the moment, that's all free, and we're just trying to open the discussion
Yes.
to learn what the nation is wanting to see in terms of change within the industry. I think that, the fake art, it's definitely, I don't know where we're going in regards to the change, but I really hope that it moves in a positive direction where we can abolish it, basically.
Yes.
And I don't know how that will happen with so much like international, like it seems like internationally this is happening. So
Absolutely.
So it's, I'm not too sure. I'm not an expert in the arts. I think for people to just make sure that they're not supporting fake art.
Yes.
So making sure, like it is disappointing seeing some shops that still have, boomerangs and things that they shouldn't have that
Yes.
isn't contributing to the growth of our economic development for First People. So,
Absolutely. And I think it's around the education and the discussion. People, the more people discuss it and know about how this is impacting, first of all, how it's appropriating the culture and, impacting on the storylines and being able to, now it's such a topic of discussion that people in the industry are aware of it. So we're kind of becoming watchdogs and seeing it and calling it out, which is great. Prior to that, it has been something that's kind of been let go for a long time. It became a part of the commercial export and tourism. And now that we're seeing that we can educate people around how important these particular artifacts or art designs are to our storylines and our culture, it's become more of a national conversation. More of that is what we need. And I know in other disciplines in the arts industry, they have peak bodies and organizations that advocate for this.
Yes.
In the music industry, we don't have that. I mean, the exploitation.
That's the same as the fashion industry.
So this has been a big part of my journey for the last 2 years, is to be able to see if we can get a collaborative of musicians, one, to educate about the rights and responsibilities to IIP, so Indigenous Intellectual Property, their rights and royalties.
Oh, I haven't heard IIP. I've heard IP, but I like IIP.
So IIP is and because when you document a song, a story in a song format, and the ownership of that belongs to the artist, most people don't understand about their rights, even just with the collection of what they're owed and the legal forms of who owns the copyrights, and these things I'm passionate about, so I speak about it quite a bit in many forums, but also act upon it by showcasing what we do in business format. And where I'm leading to this is more, it was interested around, the First Nations fashion and design, you're non-for-profit, but also how you collaborate with artists on the business aspect to be able to give them that empowerment. And I think that's where I know from my industry where I focus on. So the more you empower someone to be able to understand all of this, it just keeps on generating. So each one, reach one, teach one is what we say.
Reach one.
Each one, teach one, reach one.
Nice. That's a good slogan. I think we definitely have like big dreams for First Nations fashion design. We're really at the foundational stages. We are yet to be funded. So I'm kind of seed funding it, and we've got a lot of volunteers that are supporting it. Yes. So it's all been built off goodwill. Fantastic. So at the moment, but we really do need financial support for it to continue on. And I think I think it will come. Yes. We're definitely busy in the background writing reports and applications and I'm connecting with a lot of people in the industry, and everyone wants to support. So it's been a really it's just at the growing stages, and I see that it's got a lot of merit, and definitely I can see it being a legacy and something that will continue on beyond us. Yes. Because there's nothing that exists like this yet. Yes. So the fact that it's great that there has been these events, but we do need an organization to support small businesses to be able to go into this space. Yes. And so, we are looking at, potentially forming a partnership with a bank so that we can understand more about taxes and banking and all of the things that you need to know that I think a lot of us get, swallowed up by and don't understand. I know that I ask so many questions to my accountant bookkeeper, you know, I'm like, it just goes over my head. And it's such a hard task for my brain as a creative.
Literally.
And I'm kind of like, okay, taking many, many notes. And
literally like 20 minutes ago, I had the same conversation with Dane. I just had a whole meeting with my accountant this morning. It got to a point where I couldn't understand the financial literacy is very important. I mean, if you don't understand...
See, that's what it's called. I was looking for the words and I was like, yeah.
And there was a point when I started out in business and career that I did not understand anything that was coming in.
Yeah.
And just looking at numbers, it was like coding to me.
Yeah, it doesn't sing. It's not alive. But for accountants, they're alive, those numbers, where it's like, huh?
So I can look at music and I can see that, but they also, it got to a point where I just walked in one day to my accountant, and this is for anybody out there who's very serious about business. There's two parts of it that I really focus on. It's legal and financial, and those two are very important to me. And I walked in straight to my accountant, sat down at the table and said, look, I'm going to come in here every day until you teach me what I need to know.
Well done. That's commitment.
I think I'm sick of it. I was like every day sitting like this pest hanging around, but it worked. It worked well, and I got a better understanding. But to your point, that stuff like partnering with the bank, the simple things of financial literacy, opening accounts and budgeting, like it's very important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And especially with this growing market that has so much interest in, like, I think because of the climate of people wanting to know where things are coming from and who's making them, I think that it's a huge opportunity for First Nations people to really capitalize on. I think we've been doing it and have been doing it in the past for years, but right now I think that there's a huge shift in the industry, that people want connection, people want to support, and they just want, I guess they want a better sense of understanding.
Fantastic. I have an idea. It just came to my head. I will say this live, like, you know, on this podcast. Why don't the First Nations fashion design organization and POWERVERSE create a symposium, music and fashion, and let's have this great discussion and invite people here to Boom Bajar and just record it, live stream it, and just create these discussions. Would you be up for that?
I would totally be up for that.
Let's make it happen.
Shit, we're doing so many things. Where's my help? No, but I do think that sounds... It's interesting that you brought that up because my partner's also very into music, and
we got Elverina and live.
Are you leaving? Okay, I'll call you. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. We're keeping that in. No, we don't want to edit this out. So, see, famous. She got people.
Yeah, she's one of the designers that went through our program. So, and her pieces have just been acquired by the Bendigo Gallery, which is really exciting. And because she was a part of our fashion performance, which was our launch here in December, called Walking in Two Worlds. And that was a huge success. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Wow, you got so much things happening, done so much great stuff for the industry up here in the far north Queensland, but no national and international impact of your work. Yeah, well, I believe so. I mean,
well, I think that's the aim. The aim is really for us to infiltrate the fashion industry so that we're invited to the table. And it is happening. So, and not like me specifically, but for more First Nations voices to be there. Because the fashion industry, when you're talking about fake art, there has been a lot of things that have happened in the past. We've been, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been a great source of inspiration. But we don't want to be that anymore. No. So we want to have self-determination and create small businesses that can become big businesses. Yes. We want to see household names, and so I think that that's the dream for First Nations fashion and design, is just to support, create a platform to elevate those voices. This is great because this segment, this whole POWERVERSE year, this year is dedicated to economic sovereignty, and that's what we want to be focused on. You know, owning our own, creating our own, and providing for our own opportunities. And I think you're doing such a great job in doing it. And thank you.
Like, you've inspired me. Like, being just a part of the stuff that, like, the world that you created, has been a blessing. You know, it showed me a whole new world of how you can present storytelling. You know, cool. And fashion's been fashion is very inspirational. Yeah. So For people who want to follow you or link up with you, do you have a website?
Yep, we have a website. It's just www.firstnationsfashiondesign.com, and then we have an Instagram, which is First Nations Fashion Design. So
fantastic.
Check it out. I have my own one, but I think check out First Nations Fashion
So
Design.
any exciting things coming up?
Oh, we do have a lot coming up. We are a part of the Melbourne Fashion Festival.
Fantastic.
Walking in Two Worlds is going virtual, and so that'll be on the 11th of March. And then on the 12th of March, we're doing a little snippet of the making of Walking in Two Worlds, which was a fashion performance held on Kunganji country, which is Alvarina's country. She invited us over there. We brought our ambassador, Charlie Fraser, who's an internationally renowned model, and she's an Awabakal woman from Newcastle, and she's never walked out on country before. She's walked for Chanel, Dior, all the big brands over in New York and London, and she came and walked
just
in.
A little bit famous?
Yeah, pretty famous. And she came to Cairns and she mentored with Perry Mooney, who's also an incredible model that I've worked with for many years. They mentored 10 girls from far north Queensland to strut the runway and be a part of a fashion performance, which was about a young girl's dream to do something different. So yeah, it was really cool to see those relationships be formed out on country. Also to work out on country. I don't know if you've done that before. I'm sure you have.
Yes.
Yeah, and the phone just switches off, and for some reason everything just happens so much more easily.
It's a different energy. It's almost spiritual. It is spiritual.
Yeah.
And when the universe aligns, you just know it has this something that's very transcending that moves through everybody.
Yeah.
And then beautiful work is always created.
Yeah. So it just was a beautiful moment that we captured. So that'll be the making of Walking in Two Worlds will be going live on the 12th of March at Melbourne Fashion Festival. And we've also got a pop-up shop at Melbourne Central. So it's all happening in Melbourne, but we won't be there, but we'll be activating it.
Yes.
And it'll be run by our supporters, and then we're also going to the opening of the PINPI exhibition, which is the largest Indigenous fashion survey, which we were principal partners to creating, and it's travelling to the National Museum of Australia in Canberra. I don't know exactly what date that opens. I think that's at the end of this month sometime.
But they can follow you on Facebook and Instagram, and they'll know what's happening.
Yeah. So that's just the beginning of the year. Then we've got heaps of stuff happening at the end of the year, but I can't tell you yet.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to come back on and share that with us.
Yeah.
And look, I also would love you if you have any your models or artists in.
Yeah.
Bring you all in as a group and let's have a chat and a discussion
cool.
around that. It would be great to have them on the POWERVERSE.
Thank you so much.
Well, one more thing before we go, and I ask this of all the guests that sit here at the table in POWERVERSE, and what we like to do is leave inspirational thoughts and empowering thoughts. And if you had to go through your journey and pick out one jewel, one gem that you can impart as a gift to our listeners out there that may inspire and empower them, that has worked for you, what would that be?
It would be to stay persistent. Do I sound tired when I say that?
Yes.
Yeah. I think just to stay persistent and to really acknowledge the support that is around you. I think maintaining those friendships of family connections and friends and other people within the industry who are like-minded and wanting to stay positive, to support you. I think that is, you need those people around you to stay strong. So
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much. I want to thank you again for coming on to POWERVERSE.
Thank you
Short
for
notice.
having me. Sorry I didn't get dressed up.
That's okay. The next one, now you know what we're about.
Not that I dress up too much, but I would have worn a weave.
Yes. Well, the next one we'll do
Next
that.
one. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. And there you have it, guys. Episode of POWERVERSE, Grace Lillian Lee. Go check out all the links you'll see in the descriptions below. And I want to thank everybody who's been tuning into POWERVERSE and supporting. And you know how we do it. We're signing off here. Golden Mike from the North saying stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay connected. That's all.